Why do folks eventually cease to commit crimes? What are the factors that go into people simply aging out of deviancy? How can you, as a practitioner, accelerate that process? Keep watching to find out the answers to these questions and more. I'm Joseph Arvidsson, Executive Director of the Paragon Group and host of the Criminologist YouTube channel and the Criminologist podcast. In this episode, we're going to give you an overview on the topic of desistance from crime, with more content on desistance from crime to come in future episodes. In episode 8 of the Criminologist podcast, entitled Drop the Resistance, Embrace Desistance, we noted how adhering to the well-established risk-need-responsivity model is really only utilizing half the equation of client change. You see, the RNR model is all about examining those variables which drive folks into a life of crime and deviancy, those things known as criminogenic needs. If you are unfamiliar, those are the correlates to crime such as criminal history, lack of pro-social, recreational, or leisure activities in one's life, dysfunctional or unhealthy family relationships, lack of achievement in the arenas of school or work, also alcohol and drug misuse, association with risky peers, criminal orientation, also known as criminal thinking, and antisocial personality pattern. Now, we can really take a bite out of crime by accurately assessing and addressing those variables, but again, that's really only getting at half the equation. Now, to be clear, the risk-need-responsivity model is currently the gold standard, if you will, of effective correctional client supervision. It is literally utilized all over the world. But again, by looking strictly at why folks enter into a life of crime, we neglect to examine and promote variables of why folks exit a life of crime, a process known as desistance. And what is really fascinating is that those variables reflective of why folks enter into a life of crime are not the same as those variables reflective of why folks exit a life of crime. Again, we will take a deep dive in future episodes of the Criminologist channel into this content. But for now, let's take a broad overview of desistance. The process of desistance is complex and occurs on several levels. First, we have primary desistance. Primary desistance is essentially behavioral. Think of this in terms of recidivism, but it is a gross oversimplification to think of desistance as no longer committing crimes. Next, we have secondary desistance. Secondary desistance is all about identity transformation, which I'm going to touch on in just a bit. Finally, we have tertiary desistance. And this is all about belonging to a community and acceptance in that community. What does this process look like then, if not simply the absence of criminogenic variables? Again, broadly speaking, desistance occurs when we have an increase in human capital, social capital, and identity transformation. Think of human capital as your life's resume. Reflect on your own accomplishments with school and work, your traits and qualities that you've developed as a result of all your hard work in those areas. Now think of the justice-involved individuals you work with. Reflect on their human capital, or more to the point, perhaps sadly, their lack thereof. We can promote desistance in the populations we work with by augmenting their human capital and perhaps attaining primary desistance. Next, social capital. That's all about the people in our lives. Not so much risky versus non-risky as might be viewed through the risk-need-responsivity lens, but rather, to what degree can those folks in one's life provide positive avenues to change, perhaps even augmenting human capital along the way. Again, think of the justice-involved individuals you work with. Reflect on their social capital. Are those folks in their lives promoting positive growth and change, or are they hindering the desistance process? Finally, we have identity transformation. This, in my opinion, is what really distinguishes desistance from merely no longer seeing the commission of crimes in the individuals we supervise. We've all worked with clients who we know have not committed crimes as of late, but they still root for the bad guys in the movies. They still have their old criminal identity. Desisted folks no longer see themselves that way. They no longer think of themselves as a gangster or a hustler or a pimp or a shot caller, but rather as a father, a husband, a good employee, a citizen. Their old criminal self is long gone. In its place, a new replacement self. As noted, this is merely the first chapter in what will be a series on the topic of desistance from crime. If you're intrigued and want to learn more, please check out our podcast, The Criminologist. In that podcast, I supervise a caseload of fictitious felons, helping them all discover their own pathways towards desistance. Check it out on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Spotify, wherever you listen to your quality podcast. Thanks for watching.